This American with PTSD visited Japan and went on a brutal rampage because he thought he was still fighting the Imperial Japanese in World War II. Dorian is the exact representation of what Japanese people think foreigners would do if they visit Japan. This American not only terrorized all of Japan, but also traumatized his fans by giving us the worst CGI in all of anime history. This is pretty much a series where I rank the craziest Baki characters from the least to most insane. We'll also be counting how many victims they rack up.
Careful. Don't get too close. Maintain a 1 meter distance.
This giant old man is Dorian, who's being brought to a room to be executed for being too much of a menace. As he's being brought to be hung, the priest asks him if he has any last words. Dorian answers by giving him the most menacing grin and the words,
I want to taste defeat.
These guards aren't about to wait around to be squashed like bugs, so they hang his ass, and after 10 minutes a doctor comes in to make sure he's dead. But their dumbass didn't realize how outdated this execution method was, so this big ass motherfucker gets up and starts absolutely annihilating everyone. He then leaves to go terrorize Japan, and just like Spec, he swims all the way there. What does Dorian do first in Japan? Well, terrorize the locals, of course. While some karate kids were peacefully practicing martial arts and throwing hands, a big ass American shows up out of nowhere and begins doing what Americans do best. Traumatizing wherever country they visit. He pretty much walks into the dojo with shoes on, and when he is asked to take them off, he disrespects old boy by kicking him and then says, oh, I didn't mean to do that, before proceeding to gouge his eyes out and choke his ass with his own karate belt. If that isn't cultural appreciation, I don't know what is. After the karate guy begins seeing red and saying, you don't want to make me angry, Dorian pretty much responds by throwing a piece of wood into his neck before attempting to leave, but Made in China comes out of nowhere and says, you mess with him, you mess with me. But Dorian begins crying for no damn reason and then tries throwing a piece of nose hair into Made in China's eyes, but Made in China does the most dramatic and over the top move just to dodge a piece of hair. I mean, the easier thing to do is just to close one of your damn eyes, but Made in China's like that. Dorian suddenly begins spitting fire and disappears from the dojo. He then begins following a homeless man through the night, but Made in China wanted his wands back, so he spawns out of nowhere and starts using talking no jutsu, in which homeless man kindly donates his trash to Dorian. I'm sure Dorian was surprised that not all Japanese people are nice. Well, at least Made in China and homeless man aren't. Dorian pretty much gets his shit rocked by homeless man, but suddenly Dorian attempts to use fire breathing on homeless man, but homeless man is a master in bullshitsu, so he instantly blocks the attack.
Dopo.
Okay y'all, I don't know what's going on here, but pretty much, I don't know either. Now that homeless man only has one arm, he should be weaker now, right? But no, this is Baki, so him losing his arm only made him stronger, so he slams his thumb into Dorian's face and randomly disappears like an NPC in a game. Right now, Dorian is definitely a D1 menace, pretty much the highest ranking crazy a character can get. There's no way he fumbles this, right? As homeless man, Made in China, average Netflix teenager, buff toddler are being scolded by bald man, Dorian suddenly appears again to harass the main cast. It's also terrifying how well-mannered he is for being so damn violent. Like he's that chill friend you always gotta watch your background because he might actually be after your head. This American just annihilated and turned all the Japanese locals into pretzels, and now he's about to prove why the Japanese have a fear of Americans. But just when he's about to perform Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Karate Kid shows up behind and prevents him from committing arson. Karate Kid then splashed gasoline onto Dorian, threatening to light his ass on fire. Dorian is down on his ass, but for some reason, Karate Kid is on top of him, being zesty as fuck. Even Dorian doesn't know what to make of this fruitcake, who's just spouting about how Dorian made him like this. Dorian pretty much gets set on fire and begins crip dancing upside down while everyone is watching like it's an everyday thing. Dorian bro, it's not looking too good. Made in China notices something off and throws a kick at Dorian. Dorian, who is actually vaping, gets up like nothing and challenges everyone once again. But a side character interrupts the upcoming fight, thinking that he's the shits and tries to be like one of the main characters by disrespecting Dorian and cutting off his ear. Dorian right now is being disrespected and being lectured by a homeless man about how Westerners nowadays are too busy trying to figure out what gender they are to understand the essence of martial arts, which is true. But Dorian suddenly begins convulsing and seems to have had enough of this talk no jutsu, so he vomits out a grenade like a true American and lights this bitch up. This American is now on the streets, contemplating his life decisions. Dorian walks into the alleyway and catches a man peacefully pissing. But to my and your surprise, Dorian is no longer terrorizing the locals. Maybe he finally got humbled and put the life of an average American in another country behind him. Now, I'm not sure if this is what Americans usually do, but Dorian pretty much opens a manhole and crawls into the sewers into his secret lair. Because turns out, Dorian is actually a sewer dweller, and this is where he lives. As Dorian is treating his wounds, side character number 1000 shows up thinking he's the main cast, not realizing the absolute animal that is Dorian. Even Dorian is like,
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Dorian actually confirms that he's a veteran with immense PTSD, and he's about to turn bro into a Lunchable. As side character tries to interrupt Talk Nobusu, Dorian pretty much counters him before crushing a bunch of bottles and saying that, bro, I was just glazing y'all, I went easy. Now, y'all about to witness the most disrespectful beatdown in all of anime. You know this shit is about to get serious when Dorian turns CGI, starts looking like a poorly made indie game. The fight begins and side character tries throwing a barrel at Dorian, but Dorian deflects it. He then begins roasting and beating up side character number 1000. The fight pretty much gets ruined by the horrible CGI, but you guys can probably guess what happens to side character as he gets absolutely manhandled. Dorian begins suddenly singing while side character is fighting for his life. After getting his pretty face cut up, side character uses the ultimate alcoholic father technique, and it's strangely effective. Side character is now somehow winning the fight, like he got Dorian crying like a little bitch. But I think we all know something is severely off, as Dorian isn't acting like the menace he usually is. Because turns out, this is all an illusion. In reality, side character has no chance in hell of beating this menace. Dorian finishes him off by cutting his neck with the same wire he used on Homeless Man. Like man, this shit is hella sad. Rest in peace, side character number 1000. You will be missed. He was later found slumped out in a punching bag by Made in China. Dorian man is a freaking Division 1 menace. There's no way he can fumble the bag, right?
I hope everything was to your liking.
Yes. Very satisfying.
I can't tell you how pleased I am that you enjoyed your meal, Mr. Dorian.
Dorian is now peacefully and elegantly enjoying a meal at a fancy restaurant, not realizing the impending doom that is about to befall him. The doctor suddenly mentions his name, which is weird as Dorian never shared his name. But thanks to him beating up a random side character, he now has a total of 1 million side characters wanting to avenge a random side character. Now, if we do the math, 1 minute versus 1 million side characters, well, you guys are about to see how this plays out, as this is the only man in history who managed to start war with the side characters. Soon Dorian is taken to an amusement park and everyone begins taking shots at him, but bro is one of the main villains, so these side characters are not surviving. After Dorian puts the side characters in their place, he enters the amusement park and begins enjoying his time in CGI. But angry ass Made in China comes out of nowhere and ruins his fun. Wait, this isn't Made in China. Well, it's actually another side character here to challenge one of the 4 menaces of the show. The fight ensues and Dorian begins suddenly running, but they end up on a roller coaster in which Dorian begins choking this Japanese man. But big Japanese man managed to use the ultimate zesty stance to stay on his feet and managed to get the upper hand. But suddenly, Dorian tackles him off the roller coaster, causing the both of them to hit the ground with great force. Looks like this Japanese man has become another one of Dorian's victims. The crew finally arrives and Homeless Man is finally gonna get serious. So he begins stripping down and whoa. Okay. I had to make sure this wasn't going where I thought it was going. But Homeless Man turns out to be actually Dopporochi, the Tiger Slayer, the motherfucker who got obliterated by Yujiro, and the guy who clapped Ali Jr.'s cheeks. Dorian and Doppo begin throwing hands, but it looks terrible because while they animated the big Japanese man, it seems like they said fuck it, we're gonna make this fight as ass as possible. Doppo pretty much begins whooping Dorian and turns out he still has his hand that Dorian cut off. That's because bro went into a suspicious dark alley and got his hand reattached by a drug doctor. I would definitely trust a doctor who drinks and doesn't care about the sanitation on his job. So Dorian also begins stripping and we end up having 2 buff naked men on screen fighting each other. After being punched, Dorian once again spawns an item out of his mouth, which turns out to be acid, which causes Doppo to go absolutely nuts on Dorian. But for some reason, we get a cut of Baki and his girl having a K-drama scene, in which some motherfucker said,
Aww.
Who said that? Who the fuck said that? Who's the slimy little communist shit twinkle-toed cocksucker?
We get back to the fight in which Dorian begins activating his CGI jutsu, which is supposed to be some crazy martial art, but it just looks goofy. Dorian suddenly blows dust into Doppo's eyes, and for some reason, Dorian once again is 10 times weaker. As Doppo is in an illusion, Dorian tries to jump Doppo, but Doppo is too much of a Giga Chad, so he ends up putting Dorian on his ass, and then started curb stomping his ass. Dorian begins getting his ass beat, but he's strangely happy about it, because for some reason, his greatest desire is to get his ass beat. Dorian's bones gets grind to dust, and he begins shitting himself because Doppo here, the god of martial arts, is about to send his ass to heaven. But he stops at the last second. Dorian is pretty cooked here because this is not D1 Menace activities. Side character number 1000 is brought out all disabled and shit, like he actually matters to the story. As the doctor is yapping, side character number 1000 begins walking like a zombie. This shit makes Dorian shit himself, and he begins crying like a little bitch. So as Dorian is sent to the hospital, Doppo returns home to find a big old mess. Then Dorian suddenly appears out of nowhere and explodes a bomb in Doppo's face, causing Doppo to be defeated. And then bro started singing the worst song over Doppo's body. Dorian after this goes absolutely bonkers, and after getting beaten up by Made in China one last time, his brain transforms into that of a child, which he'll continue acting like this for the rest of the series. Now, I wanna rank dude at D1 Menace, but what the hell were those cheap ass shots? And him sucking candy like an actual toddler? Like imagine you're driving a free candy van to school, but instead of little kids climbing into the van, it's this big ass American Dorian.
Candy.
Bro just lost 100,000 aura just from that one candy line. He also lost the D1 Menace position, so he's gonna be placed at crackhead tier. Now, if you legends like Baki and also want to become strong, check out the 100 kg gripper in the description. You can also join my Discord to be part of the growing community of Baki fitness addicts.